Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Association of the United States Army's annual conference and trade show in Washington, D.C., #1 gathering of U.S. Army leaders from around the world. Our coverage here is sponsored by General Motors Defense, Bell, L3 Harris and Leonardo DRS, and we're here at the Elbit Systems of America stand to talk to the president and CEO of the business, my friend Renan Horowitz. Renan, it isn't an AUSA unless we get a chance to talk. Pleasure. How are you?
It's a pleasure. Very good, Vago. It's very good to see you here at AUSA.
Absolute pleasure. Congratulations, I think, are in order. You guys won a little contract for night vision equipment. Tell us a little bit about how game-changing that is and how you guys look at this win as really dramatically growing your footprint and then expanding from that into much more multi-domain operations and platforms.
Well, Vago, we're very happy for the night vision business now to be part of the Elbit America family. As you know, they have a leading position in this country in everything to do with night vision. One key program with the U.S. Army is the ENVGB, which is the program of record for the future of night vision, fused goggles, augmented reality, everything the Army is talking about with regards to enhancing soldier lethality. So a great opportunity. The other program they just won a few weeks ago is the SBNVG, which is the Marine Corps program of fused goggles. So we're very delighted to now have the two leading services, two leading programs for both services, the Marines and the Army, on night vision. And of course, we look to take our capabilities in night vision together with the leading positions we have on targeting, handheld targeting, and come back to the Army with solutions that are really fitting what they see as the need to enhance soldier survivability and lethality, which is, as you know, is one of the key focuses of Futures Command, one of the 6 priorities the Army set there.
And I should note that business that you acquired was divested, or the government required L3 and Harris to divest one of their night vision businesses. They chose this business, and it turns out the one that they sold you is the one that ended up winning these contracts. Talk to me a little bit about how Elbit Systems of America operates in the United States. It's an American company, but it also is connected to Elbit, which is one of the world's leading technology companies. Enormous amount of investment you're making here, but also the parent company is making. Talk to us about how you're going to bring some of this connectivity capability, because the Israel Defense Forces pride themselves on actually having a lot of this multi-domain capability within their borders. In fact, if anybody has been paying attention to the evolution of the Israel military, they would see that actually some of these trends were extant there for the last 20 years. So talk to us about how you can serve as a conduit to actually bring fully baked ideas from that market to this one.
Well, we have the benefit of enjoying both worlds. We have the access to the amazing portfolio of technology and capabilities of Elbit in Israel. At the same time, Vago, especially with the night vision business, we now have almost 2,500 employees in the U.S. We're going to do over $1 billion of business this year, and we have 5 major locations with a lot of capabilities, both on engineering and manufacturing. So what we're doing here in the show is a good example. With regards to the vehicle behind you, which is a future fighting vehicle technology demonstrator, we are bringing capabilities developed in Israel and looking at application for the Army's next generation combat vehicle. 360 situational awareness, autonomy, reduced crew burden, sensor fusion, active protection systems, all that integrated in here, not as a product that we're going to sell the vehicle itself, but as a technology demonstrator. And we are definitely looking at programs like MPF, programs like OMAV, program like the Bradley, to see how we can bring these kind of technologies into those future requirements of the U.S. Army. We're doing the same thing on future vertical lift. We have our X-Sight helmet here, which is a wide field of view, full color, day-night integrated system, which is going to be the future of pilotage for programs like FVL, future Apache, and so forth. So we're really leveraging the access to the technology with a strong and getting stronger organic U.S. capabilities that can help with designing, can make the adaptation, can deal with sensitive information, and can, of course, support the products in the long run.
And the F-35 helmet, right, which is much of this technology was derived from you guys from that work for Lockheed Martin on the F-35 Lightning II fighter. It really is extraordinary how you guys have fused that and used it on the land side, on other air side programs as well. What are some other things you want to do with that technology, right? Because you guys keep unlocking, at one point you were even talking about naval applications and how you guys could apply it there. Where do you see putting discrete elements of this technology, because also you're making internal investment to reduce size, form, fit, factor, et cetera. Talk to us about where you want to take that business, which creates kind of a virtual cycle of itself.
So one thing, just to make sure it's absolutely clear, important to me, is on the F-35, we do work with our partner Collins Aerospace, and we have a work share there, and I want to make sure their name is there, because we're not just on our own there. What we're doing is we're leveraging the capabilities we're developing for F-35 and others as around head tracking, video stitching, to provide, for example, in this vehicle here, we have our 360 SA, the Iron Vision system, which provide a very similar capability to be able to use sensors around the vehicle to see through, work, basically fight with closed hatches, vehicle, crew, protected, but provide the same situational awareness as if you're outside. That's a good example of what we're doing with the technology. We're taking the same capability nowadays to the soldier. You know, these advanced goggles, the ability to use sensors and to provide the soldier situational awareness. One of the things that's very important to the Army is the connectivity between the mounted force and the soldier, the dismounted. So we're providing now, demonstrating capability, how you can get from the Iron Vision into vehicle information into the SBNVG with our night vision business, such that the dismounted soldier, when they dismount the vehicle, have the same type of connectivity and information. So we see tremendous capabilities around both the technology such as the F-35 technology, but also our ability to bring the connectivity, the fusion, and the seamless interface between the forces.
Let's talk a little bit about Army Futures Command. It's a year now. Last year when we had an opportunity to talk about it, and we got a couple of updates since AUSA, you and I talked also at Global Force Symposium, and it was, look, the key is how it's executed. We now have a year under your belt. I know that all of the cross-functional teams, and General Murray is also looking for input from industry on how they improve, how they do it. At first there were some questions about it, but now I seem to be getting kind of universal applause, although there are folks who say, hey look, there's still room for improvement. From your perspective, as a thoughtful observer and participant, what's working right, how can they improve?
I see tremendous progress, Vago. First of all, we had the pleasure of actually hosting General Murray several months back in our facility in Fort Worth, talked to him about capabilities and technologies. He was very attentive, a very good dialogue, and I can see Murray and the Forces Command team really making some headways. We, at this show, for example, elected to focus our displays and solutions in all of our meetings based on the Futures Command CFTs. So we're aligning with their priorities. I think they are becoming clearer on what their priorities are, what's the roadmap in, and I'm encouraged. I think this is starting to make good sense and good headway. So we support that. We know that Futures Command is now engaged with Texas A&M on a test site in Texas. We are very happy with that. As you know, our headquarters in Texas, so we look forward to some collaboration with them on that. I think it's in a positive trajectory.
I was going to say that it wasn't a big trip for General Austin to make, General Murray to make from Austin to get over to your neck of the woods, although he has pretty good barbecue there as well. Let's talk, and we can talk Stickfleisch later, but let's talk a little bit about requirements.
Yes.
The whole key is getting requirements right. There's a little bit of concern that some of the requirements are maybe a little bit too stringent and a little too directive. And the second concern is how much the Army wants industry to invest in stuff at now sizable blocks, right? I mean, if you look at the FARA guys, I mean, they are in this for quite a bit of money. Yeah. If they win, they're going to get double the amount, but it's still a little bit of a challenge. Talk to us on both requirements and investment. Is the Army getting that right at the end of the day, or the requirements may be a little bit too forward-leaning? How do you sense it on both of these? Because you're a CEO and you've got to respond to your shareholders.
Absolutely. So I think there is a duality a little bit on that. On one hand, you see some of those requirements being specified an expectation for very tight schedules, solutions that are stuff that require a lot of investment up front. At the same time, we see a significant amount of OTAs that are actually requiring much simpler proposals, white paper solutions, and willingness to go do prototyping and take risks and take experiments. I think the Army, from my perspective, is still working on finding what's the right balance between those things. I mean, the good thing about OTAs, about the processes, is you can do a lot of different things, try a lot of different things, and allow yourself to fail without having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. I think that's a very good thing for the Army, to be able to try new things, take risks, fail when it's still cheap. I think the concern with some of the other platforms you mentioned is the investment is so high that a business like us needs to think twice whether you can afford to risk that so much investment until you know you're successful. And I think the Army is still looking for that working point. We're in dialogue with the Army. I know the industry is in dialogue with the Army. I think that it's going to converge. It's going to take a little bit longer.
Well, I mean, and one of the things, right, is when you're on a team, the prime is putting the hook on you to say, run on. I need you to invest in, and now you have to make that calculation. Wow, that's a nice amount of money.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, that investment, who do you team with? How do you make the investment? How do you contribute value? Not just money, by the way. You need to contribute the IP, you need to contribute positions. As you know, one of the strengths of Elbit is very strong relationships with the prime OEMs, both on the air side and on the ground. If it's Boeing, if it's Lockheed, if it's BAE, if it's GD. And we're having some good discussions in the show here about what do they need, how do we help them position themselves, and how do we help them meet those requirements.
Let me, Dr. Jetty is working the new IP strategy as well as the new manufacturing policy. What's the input you're giving him? Is he going in the right direction? Are you satisfied with what you're seeing?
I think the Army took the lead on IP for DoD and came up with a policy. I think as long as the Army is clear on what is the IP needed for, and if the IP is around long-term sustainment, logistics, reducing the cost of ownership long-term, we're working very well with the Army on that. So I think it's really clear just to not just go after IP in a large sense, but have a clear purpose and mission on what is the IP needed for. And many times that's its by program. So I think what the Army is doing is good, and my understanding is that DoD is continuing to look at the Army policy maybe as a framework or the template for the rest of the services. We welcome that because we need a uniform position from DoD with regards to IP.
Well, and I thought it was also very clever that they're going to give you a royalty or a license fee if, for example, they're using additive to build spare parts and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, you've got you get a little bit of something after it. Let me take you to the last question because I know you've got to go to your next meeting. Budget. What do you see as the budget outlook, right? I mean, we talked to Secretary McCarthy, we've talked to the chief, we talked to Dr. Jetty and others here, and their view is, look, slight increasing, but the thing is tough choices still have to be made within the confines of the budget. Where do you see it going? Because your planning cycle, you guys pride yourself on really being able to look out there 5 years in terms of how you're putting some strategic investment down.
So I think there's two levels to it, right, Vago? One is what's going to happen with the budget. We're hoping to see another 2-year deal. Nobody knows what's going to happen long-term with the budget. We're hoping that with the recognitions on both sides of the aisle that we are facing near-peer competitors, that we need to make sure our military is strong and we continue investing in our military. So I think that's one thing from a budget perspective. The other side of it is, can the services, can the Army afford everything the Army wants, even if the budget stays robust or even growing a little bit? And that's a different question. And I think the Army is still looking at that. The Night Court took a lot of effort to try and converge that picture. I'm not sure we're there where we need to be. That will continue to be a challenge. And we'll work with decision makers to provide our inputs and trust that they'll make the right decision for the nation.
From your mouth to God's ears. Ronen Horowitz, President and CEO, Elbit Systems of America, and I wasn't sure whether Greg was giving us the horn in order to be able to wrap the interview up. Thanks very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Always. Thank you very much.